Hello, Oscillator Sync here. Semi-modular synths are great, and even with a sizable eurorack setup, I find myself gravitating to these complete, self-contained instruments more and more, to get the enjoyment of patching without the option paralysis that a full modular synth sometimes inspires. Nevertheless, the big benefit that a full modular setup gives you is that expandability and flexibility to build out what your setup is capable of by adding or swapping out modules. But semi-modular lovers need not feel left out. There are numerous bits of kit out there which can help you get more from your semi-modular synths, expanding their capabilities and sonic palettes. In this video, I want to highlight and demonstrate a range of different bits of gear at a range of price points, and focusing mainly on smaller independent makers that you can make use of to breathe new life into your semi-modular setups. And needless to say, everything I look at in this video can absolutely feel at home in a full eurorack setup too. Details for all of the makers and products I mentioned in this video can be found in the video's description, and if you feel so inclined, a like on the video always helps out. Let's jump in. I'm going to start with the cheapest thing on my list, and probably the one that more people have already heard of, but whenever I feature it in a video, I'm always surprised that someone asks me what they are and where they can get them, and that is the humble stack cable. These are the ones from Tiptop Audio. I think there are other versions as well, but I've only got the Tiptop ones, and they are super solid, and they've always worked really well for me. So these are simply a way for us to split a signal, or to give it the technical term in modular, we would say these are passively malting a signal. So let's say we have these two voices here, and we want to send an LFO to the cutoff of both of them. Now, on this synth that's pre-wired, but let's say it wasn't in this case. So we can come out with the stack cable of the LFO, and we can come into the cutoff of the first one, and then we can simply come off the top of that stack cable and into the cutoff of the second one. And now they are both filtering from that single signal. What I really like about stack cables is that they are very ergonomic and very readable in terms of being able to see what is happening in the patch. As nice as it is to have in bigger modules or bigger modular systems a big mult sort of as a module, you're then having to follow the signal flow to somewhere ancillary, which can be harder. The other good thing about these stack cables is that you're not just splitting the signal once. You are splitting it twice. So if I wanted to also do the PWM, for example, of this voice here, I can come out of the top of this stack cable and I've split it twice. So really, really good bang for buck, and being able to send stuff to multiple different places is really, really important in modular. This is not just for CV, of course. You could use this to split an oscillator or some other audio signal as well. I will mention just a couple of caveats with these because it is important to note. These are passive malts, which means that they are splitting passively, and what that means for us practically is that there's going to be some voltage drop when you start to split stuff. When it comes to taking something like an LFO or an oscillator or a sample or whatever it happens to be, that voltage drop is going to be insignificant in terms of the practicality of the patch. You're not really going to notice anything. Where that will become an issue is if you're trying to split out something that requires precision. For example, the output from a sequencer where those voltages are quite specific for the notes that are being played. In those cases, you might find that splitting that out using a stack cable or any kind of passive mult might actually throw that sequence off a little bit so that the notes aren't quite on pitch. You might get away with it within some range, but probably best to use a buffered mult in that case. And we'll get to an example of that a little later on. The other thing, and this is probably the more important thing with the stack cables, is that with any sort of passive mult, these are for splitting signal and never for mixing signal. You shouldn't be taking two outputs and using a stack cable to bring it into a single input. Best case scenario, it just won't quite work the way you think it is because of impedance weirdness. And worst case scenario, you could damage the synth or the module that you're doing that with. So it's just best not to do that. If you need to mix signals, you need a specific mixer. And again, as it happens, we'll get to something there. Next up, I'm going to talk about kind of a whole class of devices, some examples of which I have here, and these are 0 HP or passive utilities. And what these are essentially are little unpowered devices that you can sort of use as an intermediary between some patch cables to give those cables some kind of additional functionality, a way of giving them superpowers, essentially. I've got a couple of different brands represented here. These black ones are Pusherman, these blue ones are Feed Me Synthesis, but there are lots of other brands out there. Mystic Circuits is one of the ones that comes to mind, but if you're willing to browse on, say, Etsy, you'll find lots of people making these kind of things, and they're really useful. That's why I have quite a few of them already, and will probably buy more. Right, let's start with an example here. This one here, this is an attenuator. So let's say we have within our instrument some kind of LFO, and we are going to plumb that into some CV input, but that CV input doesn't have any way to kind of fine-tune the amount of modulation, which is very common for like additional patch points. On this device, we could do it with the pitch because it's internally routed, but we couldn't do it with the PWM, for example. So in this case, I can, instead of going straight into that input, I could come into my passive attenuator, back into the pitch, and we have that wide vibrato, but we can now fine tune it to where we want it for our particular patch. So that's one of the most useful ones, and if you are after something in this world, that's what I would probably get first regardless. You don't just have to use this for CV, of course. It will work as a volume control for an oscillator or another audio source. You can even in a pinch use it as a way to bring a signal down low enough so that it is coming out of like eurorack standard and into, say, an audio interface or a mixer in a pinch, rather than having any other kind of output system. Next up, I'll talk about a couple of switches. We'll start with this one here from Feed Me Synthesis. So these are little switches. We can come, say, into here with our LFO, and we'll stick with that really obvious vibrato that we were using before, just so you can definitely hear what is happening. So here we have that big wide vibrato. And without anything plugged into the other side, what you've got here now is a switch for disabling something. And again, it's CV in this case. It could be audio, an oscillator, or what else. Now, if I put something into the B input, maybe this other more obviously shaped LFO, now I have a way of switching between those two different shapes. So as a performance control, that can be really, really great. That could even be two different sequences, and you're switching between those two different sequences, or two different samples, or two different oscillators, whatever it happens to be, and being able to just quickly switch what is happening in the patch without having to repatch it is just like really, really useful. I've got another one here which is from Pusherman, which is slightly different. It has a couple of other bells and whistles. We can basically get it to do the same thing. So if I just go into those two inputs and back into the pitch here, we have the switch there where we can mute the modulation. We could also come into this one here, and we can do that switching between the two modulations. But the other thing we can do, and this is going to be a bit cacophonous, I apologise, is if we also plug into this other one, you can hear that one is now doing the up and down one, and now we can swap it over. Or if we don't plug anything into the second one, we can just switch where that is going. So this is really neat as a utility. Also, you can just bridge stuff through your hand with cables, which is free. You already have a hand. The final example that I have on the desk today is probably my favorite, which is this little low pass gate. This one's from Pusherman, others are available. A low pass gate is kind of a combined filter and VCA, essentially, in a kind of primitive way. It's using a Vactrol, which is a combination of a light-dependent resistor and a light source. And it's, as I say, it's passive. The power for lighting up the light in there is actually the CV itself. This is particularly apropos for this particular instrument because it's a drone instrument and we don't have any way to, say, gate or envelope the sounds. You know, it's droning and nothing else. But you'll notice that there is a surreptitious sequencer that has appeared in the top of the screen here. So let's see what we can do here. So I can take the output of my voice into the low pass gate. I can take the output of the low pass gate and bring it into the aux in, actually, in this case, which is useful. And I can turn up my oscillator. We won't hear anything because we're not doing anything with the CV here, but I have a gate sequence on this cable here, and if I bring it in, we now have a way of gating this sound. And by adjusting the duty, we can get these nice little plucks. And you basically have a tone control here on this one, which allows us to shape the sound as well. Although you'll still hear, if we make the gate longer, we still get brighter at the top end. Very cool. We don't have to put a gate signal into this, of course. We could put anything, so we could actually take the output of one of our LFOs here, or change it to a different shape. There we go, so we could shape what we're doing with the low pass gate. Get a nice sloped thing. Very nice. And you also don't need to be sending audio into it either. We could come back to just hearing the oscillator here, and we could use as the input the other LFO, maybe on a different shape, and bring that into, let's do the pitch again. So you can use this as a way to sort of multiply together CV signals as well. So now we're hearing the combination of these two different LFOs together. So we can use it to create more complex LFO patterns as well. So yeah, of everything on here, although the attenuators are probably the ones I use the most, the little passive low pass gates are just fantastic. A great way for you to get more voices out of something as well, even if you have a single sequence happening in the pitch domain. Molting that output from the oscillator off into a low pass gate and giving it a different gate pattern to maybe the main synth can create the illusion of multiple sequences going on, even if the pitch is the same on both of them. These are, of course, not the only types of 0 HP utilities you can find. There are distortions, there are filters, there are panners and crossfaders, a whole world of different little passive devices, which are probably the most cost-effective way to add some functionality to your patching. And of course, they are portable, so it doesn't matter which instrument you're using it with today. You can always use it with a different instrument tomorrow. So next up, I have something which is also kind of, strictly speaking, a 0 HP sort of passive utility, but it's unique enough that I think it's worth discussing on its own merits, and that's this, which is the Herzlich Labs MMI node controller. I have some other Herzlich Labs stuff in my main rack, including a larger version of this concept here, but this is a sort of standalone small thing which is perfect for use with semi-modular synths. So I'm going to take an LFO and bring it into the input. and I'm going to take the output and put that into, let's go with the filter so you don't have to listen to so much weird pitch fluctuations now, and I'll bring this up and you'll hear that nothing is happening with the filter at the moment, which is expected. So the MMI stuff is basically based around skin conductance, and this is an amazing way to add sort of performance to your patches. So if I start to bring my finger onto the node, the more of my skin, so the harder I press, the more is let through. It's essentially a skin-controlled attenuator. And it's just an amazing way to bring this kind of performance, something very, very hands-on, literally hands-on, to your patch. And just like with the other things we have talked about, in this case we are using a bit of CV, but it doesn't have to be CV. We can even use this. I take the output here and bring it into the aux in again. We can use this as a way to bring in sound sources as well. You kind of have quite a fine control over that sort of performance. I think these are fantastic. I can probably see myself buying a couple more just to be able to sit down beneath a synth and have that immediate hands-on control over something. Yeah, big fan of these. Can heartily recommend them, and also checking out the other Herzlich stuff, whether it's the MMI stuff or a bunch of other really, really nice utilities. They're also a company that makes some other great 0HP bits. We've had a change of scene for this next device, and it is this, the Nano-U from DF Audio. They sent this over to me a little while ago, and it was actually the inspiration for this video altogether, because this is in a very small little package with not a lot seemingly going on the panel, a really, really fantastic problem solver. It can be a performance device. It can also be used quite creatively in some cases. This is a really nice example of a simple thing with just the right amount of other stuff added in to make it really, really compelling. You may be aware of DF Audio. They also create a bunch of nice little patch bays that are designed for kind of the synth world, lots of mini jacks, things in there, various different sizes. But yeah, we're talking about the Nano-U today. So unlike all of the other devices we looked at so far, this is an active device. You can see that I'm powering it here on the back. So we need to provide this one power, but that does give it some additional options in the way that it operates. So what can you do with the Nano-U? I'll start on the right-hand side, the side that is labelled attenuate, and I'm being careful to say attenuator, not attenuator, because although it can do that attenuator stuff, it actually does a bunch of other stuff as well. And I'm going to start by not plugging anything into the input, which seems mad, but does allow me to demonstrate the first of those things that it does that isn't just attenuation. If I turn up my oscillator here, obviously you can hear it there, and I've plugged this into the pitch CV. So if you have nothing plugged into number 3 here, we have a fixed 5-volt control that is plumbed in by default. So this is amazing if you have something on your synth which has a CV input but no physical control. Now you can have a physical control over that CV. If we do plug something in, then it's going to act very much like our passive attenuator did earlier. So I'll just put an LFO in here, and we can hear it turning itself up. Lovely. So the next thing that is worth talking about is this mix button, I should say, right here. It does what it sounds like, and then it's going to mix the inputs together. But what's interesting about that is it's mixing them together and duplicating them to both outputs. So before I plug anything else in to mix together, if we turn on the mix control, what we actually get is a splitter. So I can bring this into, say, the cutoff. And now I can get both pitch and cutoff being modulated at once. Of course, if we do just want to do mixing stuff, I could take maybe the other LFO and bring it into this side, and then we can bring those two together. And now you can hear that slow square wave being mixed with the faster triangle wave. And we could, of course, go one further and then also split the signal, that mixed signal, so it's going into the filter as well, for example. And the important thing to note here is when I was talking earlier about you shouldn't be using passive mults to mix things together. Of course, this is active, it's buffered. So doing that mixing and splitting this way is all perfectly fine. On the left-hand side of the Nano-U, we have this boost section. And this is apparently where this sort of circuit began, and then the other stuff sort of grew up organically around it. And this is all about taking something that is of a lower voltage and bringing it into the eurorack world. So the classic example here would be something with a line level output. So line level outputs tend to be sort of 1-ish volts. And in eurorack, we're expecting sort of -5 up to +5. So that's a 10-volt swing, quite a lot more. And we can demonstrate the issue with that. If I plug this into the external input and turn up, we can hear it. But if I start bringing in any of the oscillators, even at a fairly moderate level, or the noise, like it's completely drowning it out to the point that we'd have to have these so low to make it sort of work with that input, that you would start to introduce noise and stuff. It wouldn't be a great idea. So what we can do is bring this into the boost side here, take an output and bring that into the external input and turn it up. Got quite a lot of clean gain here, and now you can hear a lot easier. And if I start to bring in other stuff, then we can mix it in there nicely. And now we can do all sorts of fun things like sort of filter and modulate, which is lovely. That's all the stuff that we like. So we also have the same mix idea here that we have on the other side, so we can use this both to mix and split. The other buttons here we have is this S and F button, and this is related to an envelope follower. So an envelope follower takes a signal, and rather than replicating the signal exactly, it's going to derive a signal, a CV source, based on the loudness of the input, which is a great way to create movement that's derived from, say, a rhythmic thing like this. So let's see what that sounds like. So if I turn this on now, you can hear that we're not really hearing the signal so much anymore. But if we were to take this into the, say, the cutoff input here, and let's bring up some noise here. So now we've got a CV source that's derived from this input. And if I was to turn on the mix and go to the other side, we'll get a different signal because it's a faster one, snappier. How it reacts is going to also be affected by where our boost is set. Cool. The nice thing here as well is that with the mix enabled, we don't have to have it envelope on both channels. So if I wanted to bring this back into the external input here, because we're duplicated on the mix there, bring this in, now we are able to apply that filter movement to our main beat that we have here. And you might be thinking, well, now it sounds like once I've boosted it enough, we're not really getting the full range of that envelope follower anymore, and I am inclined to agree as it happens, but that's fine because of course we have an attenuator here, so we could take our envelope signal and put it into our attenuator and attenuate it so we get the range that we want to hear. And we could also duplicate that out to, I don't know, pitch. That's pretty fun. Yeah, so you can use this both to sort of do that sort of problem solving, splitting, distributing within the system, but it also works in a creative way as well, especially when you start introducing other inputs. So yeah, really nice little unit and a great little problem solver. The final device that I want to talk about in this video is this, the Slewp and Slide from FeedMe Synthesis. I saw this for the first time at Machina Bristonica earlier this year, and I was pretty blown away with how well thought out this was and how creative it could be while still being very utility-like when you needed that as well. And I don't think I'm going to fully be able to explain everything it can do in this short video because I don't want to turn this video into just about the Slewp and Slide, but I'll try and cover it off as much as possible. So at its baseline, if you think about it in the most basic use case, I guess, what this is two envelopes. You've got a really basic envelope here on the right-hand side, which is the slide side. This is just a decay-only envelope with control over the decay. On the left, we have the Slewp side, which is more fully featured. It has controls for the rise and fall of the envelope with CV control over those. We have exponential or linear shapes. We have a slow and fast mode, basically an LFO rate and an audio rate. And we can also make it loop, turning it into an LFO, essentially. So let's look at like the most sort of straightforward use of this. So I'm going to take an output here, which will be the output of the output of the mixer, actually, but it'll be the output of Slewp for our purposes in this case. And just bring up my oscillator here. Cool. And I'll put this into looping mode so we can hear it doing stuff. And at the moment, we can't hear it doing anything. And the reason for that is that we haven't got anything turned up on the mix-up. So I'm just going to turn up this here, and I'm just going to set a shape there. And now we've got essentially an LFO with a variable shape. Of course, changing the shape because it's looping is going to change the speed as well. We have this control here, gate length, and what this does is it takes the trigger for the end of the loop, it takes the input for this here, and it also takes the push button here, and it applies a trigger to gate function over it. So where you had a single trigger in a moment, now it's going to stretch that trigger out into a longer gate, which is going to give you a sustained period to your envelope. This, as I mentioned, also applies to, say, here. So I've tapped it very quickly, but it ends up being quite long, and that's not the full part of it, that's just the sustain. I'll just put it back on to loop for a second. Now, at the moment, what we've got here is just a positive looping envelope. You can hear it's just going up from the current position. But this mix is really interesting. So this is normal to the Slewp at the moment. And if I turn up this other knob here, it's going to introduce basically a offset to the envelope, which gives us kind of a bipolar effect instead. which is cool. Now at the moment I am looping this, but we can trigger it from a sequencer instead. So if I take a gate sequence here, I'll go into the gate bypass, which doesn't get affected by the lengthening because this has got different duty lengths on it already. We can get a nice envelope sequence. We could also, if we want, maybe we could put some CV over the fall amount, which is a nice way to get more of a dynamic kind of feel to it. Nice. We could also, if we want, we could take the output from the slide side instead and just trigger that. I've just taken the CV and not the gate, that'd be the problem. There we go. And we've got control over the fall there. This one is just positive. You can't make this one bipolar. So I'll come back over to here for a second. Back to here. Nice. We've got this envelope cut here, and what this does is, depending on how this is set, when there is a trigger or you press the button for the slide side, it's going to reduce the fall amount. By how much it's going to reduce it is how you set this. And it's still going to affect it using the envelope, so you can kind of hear kind of comes down off that envelope as well. Now we could of course put a gate pattern into that, so we've got a separate gate pattern here. The idea here, I think, is drawn from the idea of closing a hi-hat, basically. So you've got your open hi-hat, and then when you've got a trigger in here, you're closing your hi-hat with that foot pedal. So yeah, that's a nice way of working with it. We do, of course, also have this. Come back here. We have this fast mode here, which is going to put it into audio rate. So I've bring this into my aux here and set it to loop. We've got an oscillator essentially. We can find different shapes. Very easy to go onto the linear mode there. So tonal and pitch changes, and the gate length is also going to have an effect there, as is the envelope cut, because that's going to shorten the fall. We have a bit of an envelope there, we can hear it. So that's fun, and we could like sequence that fall amount if we wanted to again. And get pitch sequences out as well. We could also do the rise as well, I guess. We're just going to sort of triangle it out a bit more so you get more of a tonal change there. So that's pretty fun, but that's not all, because if I take this output here and I run my oscillator from my drone voice into here, into the gate bypass, sorry, the gate gen in, is it? Oh, I haven't turned it up. Sorry, here's the gate bypass. I just need to turn it up. There we go. We're now processing this oscillator, and it's triggering the envelope, which is generating overtones. So like we could take pitch CV here then also do the fall here with the CV, sorry. That's pretty cool, right? The gate length is going to give us sort of like almost like sub-octave things happening. Hello. And I guess, and I haven't tried this yet, I guess we could we do some feedback patching here where we take the output of the, let's try that, if we take the output and then run it back into the rise amount. And as a last thing that I haven't mentioned here, the second output for the slide, rather than outputting an envelope, can be set to act like a low pass gate. So we can come here, and now that's going to be a low pass gate, so I can put a gate signal in here. Just as a reminder, what this actually sounds like is that. So we've done really quite a lot of work on that sound. Anything else we could do? We could take the other oscillator and track that into one half of the mixer. So you can get properly mad with this, right? Much beyond just using it as an envelope, which it also does a very good job with. Yeah, good fun. I hope this video introduced you to some potentially useful bits of kit that can power up your semi-modular synths. If you have a favourite utility or add-on that I didn't mention in the video, then please feel free to let everyone know in the comments. Other than that, until next time, thank you so much for watching. Take care. Bye-bye.